Picture a map of the world where the Pacific Ocean isn't a barrier. It's a bridge. In 1741, a Russian expedition led by Vitus Bering did something almost nobody remembers correctly. They proved Asia and North America were close enough to cross. 55 miles of freezing water at the narrowest point. Close enough to see the other side on a clear day. History treated that discovery as a footnote. But what if merchants had treated it as an invitation? What if, instead of ships spending 8 months sailing around the entire world to move goods between China and Europe, someone had simply walked the goods across the top of the planet? That's the question this video is going to answer. And the answer is stranger and bigger than you'd expect. By the mid-1700s, the existing trade routes were brutal. A shipment of Chinese silk or tea heading to London didn't go in a straight line. It went south, around the tip of Africa, battling monsoons, pirates, and disease, or it went the other way entirely, around South America, through waters that swallowed ships whole. Half a year, sometimes a full year, one direction. Now imagine a different kind of merchant. Not the East India Company, with its warships and its monopolies, but smaller, hungrier trading houses out of Siberia and the Russian Far East, already used to moving furs across brutal terrain. They knew the Bering Strait wasn't an ending. It was a door nobody had bothered to walk through. In this alternate timeline, they walk through it. Here's the twist. It starts small and almost fails. The first attempts at a northern route are a disaster. Frozen harbors. Native Chukchi and Yupik communities who control the actual logistics of survival out there, and who the Russian merchants desperately need as partners, not subjects. Early expeditions that try to bully their way through lose everything. Ships crushed in pack ice. Entire trading parties that simply vanish into the tundra. For a moment, it looks like the whole idea is dead before it starts. But one merchant family does something different. They stop trying to conquer the route and start trying to earn a place on it, trading firearms and tools for guides, for boats built for Arctic water, for knowledge that no European mapmaker had. And slowly, brutally, a corridor opens. Not a highway. A thread. But a thread is all trade ever needs to begin. By the 1760s, that thread has become something real, a chain of trading posts running from Kamchatka, across the strait, down through Alaska, and overland toward trading points where they can meet North American and eventually European buyers halfway. Furs and Chinese goods flow east. Firearms, tools, and New World silver flow west. It's slower than a modern supply chain, obviously. But it's faster and far cheaper than sailing around 2 entire continents. And here's the part that changes everything. Because this route bypasses the established sea lanes entirely, it bypasses the established powers, too. Britain's navy doesn't control it. Spain's treaties don't touch it. For the first time, there's a major trade artery that the old colonial empires don't get to tax, blockade, or claim. which means someone new gets rich. And someone very old gets nervous. Quick question for you. If you were a European monarch in the 1760s watching a trade route open up that you couldn't control, would you try to shut it down by force, or try to buy your way in? Sit with that, because the real merchants of this era chose both, at different times, and it never fully worked either way.
Careful now, maintain the alignment. Steady as she goes.
By the 1770s, the Northern Corridor is no longer a curiosity. It's a crisis for the old order. Spain, which has claimed the Pacific coast of North America for 2 centuries without ever really controlling the north of it, suddenly sends real expeditions up the coast, not to explore, but to plant flags before the Russian-backed traders plant them first. Britain, watching furs and silk move through a route it can't tax, starts quietly funding rival trading companies of its own to compete directly for the same native partnerships that made the route possible in the first place. For a moment, it seems like the small trading families who opened this route are about to get crushed between empires who finally noticed what they built. But here's the false alarm, the moment where it looks like it's over, and isn't. The empires assume they can simply outmuscle the network. They can't. Because the actual value of the northern route was never the ships or the posts. It was the relationships, the Chukchi, Yupik, and Tlingit communities whose knowledge and consent made the whole corridor work. And those communities have leverage the old empires never accounted for. They can simply choose who they trade with. When British agents try to muscle in with threats instead of respect, the guides and the local trading networks quietly redirect around them. The empire with the bigger navy loses to people with better relationships and better knowledge of the ice. It's not the ending anyone expected. And it changes what power even means out here. By the 1780s and into the early 1800s, this reshapes something much bigger than one trade route. With a working link across the North Pacific, industrial raw materials, tools, and technical knowledge move between East Asia and the Americas faster than in our timeline, decades faster. Chinese manufacturing techniques reach American workshops sooner. American and Russian tools and firearms reach East Asian markets sooner. The slow, one-directional flow of goods from the east to the west becomes something closer to a two-way exchange. And because no single empire controls the corridor, the coastal trading settlements along it grow into something unusual for this era, multi-ethnic port towns, run by councils of Russian, Chukchi, Yupik, Tlingit, and Chinese merchant families, answering to no single crown. Here's a real question worth sitting with. Do you think a trade network like that, built on necessity and mutual leverage instead of conquest, could have actually held together for centuries? Or was it always going to get swallowed by one empire eventually? That question isn't rhetorical, because eventually, it does start to get swallowed. As the 1800s progress, industrialized nations with real navies, the very empires who once failed to muscle in, finally have the steamships and the firepower to simply take direct control of key ports. The independent, multi-ethnic trading towns don't disappear overnight. But over decades, they get absorbed, treaty by treaty, into larger national territories. It looks, on the surface, like the old story after all: the small traders lose, the empires win. Except something survives that the empires never managed to erase: the corridor itself, and the fact that it worked. The precedent that Asia and the Americas could be linked directly, without circling half the globe, quietly reshapes how every later generation thinks about Pacific trade. When trans-Pacific shipping, and eventually trans-Pacific cables and flight routes, finally do get built in our own timeline, they're not inventing a new idea. They're rebuilding a bridge that, in this alternate history, ordinary merchants and native trading partners proved could exist a full century earlier than anyone gave them credit for. Remember that opening image, 55 miles of freezing water that history treated as a footnote? It was never a footnote. It was the door the entire modern Pacific world eventually walked through. It just took the rest of the world another 100 years to notice it was open. Next time, we're going further back, to the moment a single failed harvest quietly rewired the politics of an entire continent. You will not believe how close it came to never happening at all.